What if the place you thought was harmless, even comforting, a grocery store, became the site of the biggest betrayal of your life? That's what happened to me. My name is Eric Matheson, and I thought I had it all: a beautiful wife, a stable job, a home that echoed with love and laughter. Until she met him. Not in a bar. Not online. In a damn supermarket aisle between the apples and the artisanal cheeses. Let me take you back to where it all began, the quiet unraveling I didn't notice, the moments I misread, until the truth smacked me right in the face, leaving me hollow. Let me start by saying this: Jenna, my wife of 8 years, was everything a man could hope for. She was smart, witty, with a smile that could disarm a bomb squad. We met at a charity fundraiser in Chicago, back when we were both in our mid-20s, full of ambition and spark. I was an IT consultant, she was in marketing. Opposites in routine, but somehow synced in spirit. We moved to a calm suburb outside Milwaukee 2 years after our wedding, bought a 3-bedroom house, and began what I thought was our version of the American dream. Jenna had taken up part-time freelancing, which meant she often handled most of the errands, including grocery shopping. A small, mundane detail that would later become the fulcrum of my nightmare. It started subtly, as betrayal often does. She began going out more frequently to the local Harvest Fresh Market, a trendy little grocery store that popped up about a year ago. She said she loved the vibe, the freshness of the produce, how it reminded her of city markets. I didn't think much of it. I mean, who the hell suspects a supermarket? But patterns began to shift. She started dressing a little nicer just to run errands. Red lipstick for a trip to buy spinach? Heels to grab almond milk? One afternoon, I came home early from work. I had a dentist appointment that got cancelled last minute. The house was quiet. Jenna wasn't there. On the kitchen counter was a grocery list: avocado, oat milk, strawberries, and a small note at the bottom: "Don't forget the smile." I remember thinking it was a cute quip, maybe something for herself to remember while out. But the handwriting was not hers. My stomach clenched. I brushed it off, told myself I was imagining things. That's what trust does, it makes you doubt your instincts. But then came the whispers. Our neighbor Karen, the kind that notices everything from yard maintenance to who parks on whose driveway, dropped an offhand comment one weekend: "Jenna's looking happier these days. That market must really have some charm, huh?" It was meant as casual chatter. But it landed like a warning shot. I decided to drive over to Harvest Fresh myself the next Saturday. I pretended I needed snacks for the football game. Jenna offered to go for me a little too eagerly. I said no, I wanted to see what all the hype was about. That's when I saw him. He was behind the deli counter, talking animatedly to a blonde woman. Muscular build, tanned arms, probably late 30s. He had one of those cocky yet kind smiles that made you feel like you were the only one in the room. Name tag said Aiden. Friendly. Too friendly. As I walked by, he looked up and nodded. "Need help with anything, boss?" I shook my head. "Just browsing." And as I turned to leave, I saw the corkboard on the wall behind him. Local ads. Community board. Photos. And there she was. Jenna. Smiling. Holding a basket of apples. Standing next to him. Caption underneath: "Fall Harvest Photo Contest winner, Jenna M. and Aiden." My vision blurred. My ears rang. That smile she had in the photo, it wasn't just a smile. It was an intimacy I hadn't seen in months. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I needed more. Needed to be sure. Because my heart was still bargaining with my brain. So I started watching. She went every Tuesday and Saturday. Always around the same time. Always stayed longer than necessary. Her phone was locked tighter than Fort Knox. Notifications hidden. The final straw came the following Saturday. I followed her. Parked a few spaces away. Sat in my car, heart pounding in my throat. She walked into the store in a navy dress, one I hadn't seen before, with that same red lipstick. 23 minutes later, she came out. But not alone. Aiden walked out with her. They stood near the side of the building, where the cameras probably didn't reach. He touched her waist. She laughed. He kissed her neck. And just like that, the truth was undeniable. Everything I thought we were, the dinners, the vacations, the anniversary promises, crumbled in the shadow of a grocery store. But that wasn't the end. No. That was just the beginning of how I unraveled her lie, and slowly, methodically, prepared the reckoning she never saw coming. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together where things went wrong. Jenna lay beside me, her breath soft and even, as though she carried no weight, no guilt. But I could feel it radiating from her like heat from a broken oven. My wife, my Jenna, was cheating on me. Not just emotionally. Physically. Intimately. With a man who sliced salami and stocked almond milk. But here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't hit you all at once. It comes in waves. The first wave? Disbelief. How could she? Why him? What did I do wrong? The second? Shame. Was I not enough? Did I get too comfortable? Had our passion dried up without me noticing? The third wave? Anger. Hot, electric, simmering anger. I could have confronted her right there. Woken her up, shoved the photo in her face, screamed every ugly word I'd been holding back. But I didn't. Because part of me, a dark, calculating part, wanted something more. Not just answers. Justice. Closure. Revenge? Maybe. And I knew just where to begin. The next morning, I went into full investigator mode. You'd think a guy like me, tech-savvy, organized, a little OCD, would be great at tracking his wife. And I was. I combed through her browser history, her app usage, her location data. Nothing too obvious, she wasn't stupid, but there were patterns. She used Harvest Fresh Market as a cover. But the affair wasn't happening there. Not all of it. That was just the gateway drug. I found a second phone in her gym bag, tucked beneath old socks and hair ties. It was a burner, a cheap Android model, prepaid. No passcode. Probably because she didn't think I'd ever look there. When I turned it on, my breath caught. Dozens of messages. All from a contact saved as A. Can't stop thinking about you. That dress yesterday. I almost lost control. Tonight again? Back room is clear after 8. Photos, too. Nothing graphic, but enough to make my stomach flip, her smiling in the mirror, biting her lip, dressed in clothes I didn't recognize. So this was real. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't a mistake. It was a secret life. One she maintained while kissing me goodnight and asking if I wanted more creamer in my coffee. Over the next week, I tracked their routine. She'd go shopping every Tuesday and Saturday, but sometimes she'd come home with barely a bag. One night, I followed her again. She parked behind the store, near the employee entrance. I watched from across the street as she slipped inside through a side door, Aiden already waiting. The lights in the back room flicked on. 38 minutes later, she came back out, hair tousled, blouse wrinkled. She smiled as she got into her car, a smile of someone who just got what they wanted. She didn't know I had it all on video. That night, I printed every text, every photo, every screenshot. I created a digital folder labeled confirmation and backed it up twice. Then I called my lawyer. Not because I was ready to file for divorce, not yet, but because I needed to know my options. We had joint accounts, a mortgage, a shared SUV. She'd cheated, yes. But proving it mattered. And I wanted leverage. The turning point came 2 days later. I'd been quiet. Distant. Jenna noticed. "Everything okay, babe?" she asked, leaning against the kitchen island in leggings and a hoodie, her innocent housewife costume. "Just work stress," I replied. "Big client deadline." She nodded, but her eyes searched mine. For a moment, I wondered if she knew I knew. But then she smiled gently, sweetly, and went back to stirring her tea. How long had she been playing this dual role? The doting wife and the dirty secret. I decided then, no more waiting. I walked into Harvest Fresh Market the following day at exactly 8 p.m. Aidan was finishing his shift, wiping down the deli counter. He looked up and froze when he saw me. "Hey, man," he said. "Need something?" I stepped closer. "Yeah. We need to talk." He looked around, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm clocking out soon." "What's up?" "You're sleeping with my wife." His jaw tightened. His eyes darted to the front of the store. "Look, I don't know what you think." "Save it," I snapped. "I've got the texts. The videos. Hell, I've got the receipt from the damn wine you bought her." Aidan took a step back. "Look, man. I didn't know she was married at first. She said you were separated." I laughed. Bitter. Loud. "That's what she told you?" "She said you lived in the same house but weren't together anymore. She was in my bed last night." His mouth opened, then closed again. Guilt poured across his face. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "But I'm not letting this slide either." "What do you want?" I paused. "Let the tension hang." "Everything." I walked out of that store with a plan. Not to ruin him, no, he wasn't the enemy. Not really. Jenna was. But he could be useful. And the next step? Letting her know that I knew in a way she'd never forget. The kitchen was quiet. Too quiet. It was one of those heavy silences that buzz in your ears like static, making every little sound, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, feel like a scream. I sat there at the table, hands clasped, phone face down in front of me, waiting. Jenna came in late. Again. She slipped through the door in her burgundy dress, the one she used to wear for me when we went to dinner on our anniversaries. Her hair was done. Perfume faint but sweet. No groceries in her hand, not even the milk and eggs she always used as an excuse. "Hey, babe," she said, smiling too easily, hanging her purse on the chair. "Hey," I answered, calm as still water. She walked to the sink, filled a glass, took a sip. "Sorry I'm late. The line at the store was a nightmare." I nodded. "Oh, I'm sure it was." There was a beat. She glanced at me, I felt it, a flicker of tension. Then I picked up the phone and slid it across the table. "Why don't you read the messages from Aidan tonight? Maybe you can tell me which one of his dirty compliments made you late." The silence cracked like glass. Her hand froze midair. She stared at the phone. Her eyes darted to mine, searching, pleading, as if trying to gauge how much I knew. But she knew. She knew I knew everything. What is this?" she said, voice trembling. "What is it?" "It's your other life, Jenna," I said, my voice low, steady. "The one you've been living behind my back while smiling in my face and lying to me with those soft lips I used to trust." She reached for the phone, but I snatched it back. "No, no. Not yet. We're going to talk." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, just let me explain." "Explain?" I laughed bitterly. "Explain how you've been screwing the guy who slices deli meat while I'm here breaking my back to keep this home together?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. "You think crying's going to fix this? You think one apology is going to erase months of betrayal?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she blurted. I was lonely, and you were always working and tired, Anne." "Oh, don't you dare put this on me." She sobbed, covering her face. "I didn't plan it. I didn't even like him at first, but then, he made me feel seen. Like I still mattered." I stood, rage boiling in my gut. "You mattered to me, Jenna. Every damn day I worked, I thought I was building something for us. For our future. But while I was out there breaking bones to keep us comfortable, you were spreading your legs in a break room behind a grocery store. Her knees gave out, and she sank to the floor. I didn't help her up. I couldn't. Why didn't you come to me? I asked, voice shaking now. Why didn't you say something was wrong? Because I didn't want to ruin what we had, she whispered. I didn't want to admit I was slipping. That I was weak. I knelt down beside her, not to comfort, but to look her in the eye. You didn't ruin what we had. You destroyed it. You made a choice, Jenna. Every time you met him, every text, every lie, that was a choice. She nodded slowly, wiping her face. I know. I know. I don't deserve forgiveness. No, I said, standing up again. You don't. The next morning, she was gone. She'd packed a bag and left a note full of apologies, regrets, and a line that stuck in my throat. I'll never forgive myself for what I've done to you. But it wasn't over. Because her leaving didn't make the pain go away. It just made the silence louder. The ghost of her lingered in every room, the smell of her perfume on the pillow, her robe behind the door, her laugh echoing in my memory. I tried to delete the folder. The confirmation one. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed something to hold on to, even if it was the proof of my own heartbreak. A week passed. Then one afternoon, Aiden showed up at my door. I opened it, half expecting to punch him. But he didn't look smug. He looked wrecked. I didn't come to fight, he said. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I stared at him for a long moment. You ever been in love, Aiden? He looked surprised. Yeah. Once. Then you know what it's like to be gutted from the inside. To have someone take a knife to your trust and smile while doing it. He nodded, eyes down. Next time, ask her if she's married. Or better yet, walk away. Because what you helped destroy, it mattered. He swallowed hard. I know. I'll live with it every day. And then he turned and left. That night, I took down the photos of Jenna. Every frame, every memory frozen in time, shattered under the weight of betrayal. But I kept one picture, not because I missed her, but because I needed to remember. Remember how love can blind you. How trust can be weaponized. And how even the people closest to your heart can twist the knife deepest. I said, my voice cold and cutting, you don't. You've crossed a line I can't even see anymore. She nodded again, her tears falling freely now, as if she had finally realized the depth of the chasm she'd created between us. There was no coming back from this. Not for us. Not for our marriage. I stood up and walked toward the window, staring out into the night, my reflection merging with the darkened glass. My heart felt hollow, as though all the love I once had for her had been drained, leaving only a bitter shell behind. But what could I do now? She had taken my trust, my respect, and shattered them. No amount of apologies could rebuild the wreckage she had caused. Jenna's voice broke through the silence. Eric, please. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I was selfish, and I was wrong. Please. Don't, I cut her off, my tone harsh. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your tears. I want the truth. The whole truth. And I want you to understand the damage you've done. This wasn't a mistake, Jenna. This was deliberate. Every time you smiled at him, every touch, every lie you told me, you made a choice. She stood up slowly, wiping her face with the back of her hand, her eyes meeting mine in a broken, empty gaze. I didn't want this. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what happened. I laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. You don't know what happened? You knew exactly what you were doing. But I guess it didn't matter to you, did it? What we had. What we built together. The anger inside me surged again, and for a moment, I thought I might say something I would regret. But I held it back. I had to be careful now. I had to be calculated. She didn't deserve to see my pain. Not anymore. I'm done, Jenna, I said flatly. You're free. But not because I'm letting you go. You're free because you've already made your choice. You've chosen him. And the worst part is, you didn't even have the courage to tell me yourself. I had to find out through your secret life. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her face crumpled again, and she reached for me, but I stepped back. No, I said, shaking my head. I won't be your safety net anymore. I won't let you come back to me because he doesn't want you. I won't be your second choice. She collapsed again, her hands falling into her lap as her body trembled with sobs. Please, don't leave me. But I had already made my decision. I'm not leaving you, Jenna, I said quietly, my voice colder than I had ever heard it before. You've already left me. You just don't know it yet. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her there, crumpled and broken. But I didn't feel the sting of it anymore. Not for her. Not for me. This was the end. I spent the next few days in a daze, as though I were drifting through a life that wasn't mine. I didn't talk to anyone, not Jenna, not our friends, not even my family. I knew what I had to do, but there was a part of me that still wanted to avoid it, to delay it, to pretend like things would just go back to normal. But they wouldn't. I met with my lawyer again, finalizing everything. I didn't need to talk to Jenna about it anymore. I had the proof, the evidence, everything I needed to move forward. The divorce papers were drawn up. The assets split. The truth would be on the table, and there would be no coming back from it. But what about Aiden? I had thought about him a lot over the past few days. The man who had stolen my wife. The man who had become a part of my life without even knowing it. He was a pawn in all of this. But I couldn't let him off the hook either. He might not have known the full extent of Jenna's lies, but he had played his part in this destruction. I called him. The phone rang once, twice, before he picked up. Eric? His voice was wary, unsure. What do you want? I think we need to talk, I said, keeping my voice controlled. Meet me tomorrow at Harvest Fresh. I'll be there at noon. There was a long pause on the other end. I don't know what this is about, man, but you'll know when you get there. I hung up before he could respond. Tomorrow would be the final step in this twisted game. Jenna was already gone from my life. But Aiden? He had to face the consequences too. Jenna sat at the small corner table of a quiet cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air around her. Her fingers lightly traced the rim of her cup, but her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts that she couldn't seem to quiet. The gentle hum of the cafe's background noise only added to the tension she felt in her chest. Every time her thoughts drifted back to Aiden, the man she had betrayed her husband with, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of guilt and, oddly enough, a strange sense of liberation. But now that the affair was over, the weight of what she had done was settling in. She couldn't get rid of the image of Aiden's face, his eyes intense with desire, his body pressing against hers as they had shared moments of passion in the back room of the store. The affair had been fleeting, a brief escape from the mundane routine she had come to resent. But now, the consequences of her actions were becoming more apparent with each passing minute. Jenna had never considered herself someone capable of infidelity. She had prided herself on being a good wife, a loving partner to Mark. But over the past year, the cracks in their marriage had become too evident to ignore. Mark had been distant, more focused on his work than on her, leaving her feeling neglected and lonely. The emotional distance between them had only deepened with time, and in that void, Aiden had stepped in like a breath of fresh air. The first time she had met him at the store, she had felt a spark of something unfamiliar. He had been charming, with a confident smile and a way of making her feel special in ways Mark had long stopped doing. They had exchanged pleasantries at first, but soon the conversation had turned into something more. The flirtation had been subtle at first, but it had escalated quickly, and before long, they had shared more than just idle chatter. Jenna could still feel the electric tension in the air during their first kiss, how it had been a reckless decision that she hadn't fully understood until later. But now, sitting in the cafe, Jenna realized that what had once seemed like an exciting escape had transformed into a burden she wasn't sure how to carry. The guilt weighed on her heavily. Every time she thought about Mark, she felt a pang of regret. She had hurt him, deeply. And even though she had tried to justify her actions, telling herself that she was simply seeking the affection and attention that Mark no longer gave her, she knew that deep down, she had crossed a line that she couldn't erase. Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen, seeing Mark's name. Her heart skipped a beat. She knew this moment was inevitable. Mark had been acting strange lately, but she hadn't anticipated him confronting her so soon. She had hoped that she could carry on with the charade, but it was becoming increasingly clear that he was noticing the changes, the subtle distance between them. Taking a deep breath, Jenna hesitated for a moment before answering the call. She could feel her palms sweat as she pressed the phone to her ear, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "Jenna," Mark's voice came through the line, his tone flat but with a hint of concern. "We need to talk." She closed her eyes, bracing herself for what was to come. She had known this conversation would happen, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure she was ready to face it. She had hoped for some sort of sign, something that would tell her how to navigate this situation, but now it was up to her to confront the mess she had made. "Okay, Mark," Jenna replied, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. "What do you want to talk about?" Mark didn't answer right away. She could hear him sigh on the other end, and her mind raced with possibilities. Had he found out about Aiden? Did he know? She could feel the anxiety creeping up her spine as the silence stretched between them. "I've been thinking," Mark finally said, his voice laced with frustration. "Something's off, Jenna. I've been noticing things, little things. I know something's going on, and I need to know what it is." Jenna's stomach turned. The knot in her chest tightened, and she fought to keep her voice calm, even though everything inside her was screaming for release. She had spent weeks trying to avoid this confrontation, hoping that it would never come. But now that it was here, she knew there was no turning back. "Mark," she began, her voice shaking ever so slightly, I don't know what you're talking about." There it was, the first lie. The lie that she had been living with, that she had wrapped herself in like a protective cloak. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew it wasn't the truth. The guilt surged within her, making it harder to breathe, harder to keep up the facade. "I'm serious, Jenna," Mark pressed. "I've noticed how distant you've been lately. You've been cold, and I don't know why. You've been keeping something from me, and I can't keep pretending that everything's fine." Jenna felt a lump form in her throat, and for a brief moment, she wondered if it would be better to tell him the truth. But she quickly pushed that thought away. She couldn't bring herself to do it. The shame was too great. Instead, she continued to lie, to hide behind the fragile wall of denial. "I'm just tired, Mark," Jenna said, her voice softer now. "It's nothing. Really. I've just been stressed, that's all." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Jenna could almost hear Mark's mind working, trying to piece things together. She knew he wasn't convinced, but she couldn't find the strength to tell him the truth, not yet. Mark's voice was quieter when he spoke again, the suspicion still lingering in his words. "I don't know, Jenna. I don't believe you. Something's not right, and I think you know it." Her heart pounded in her chest as the weight of his words settled in. She had been caught in the act of her own deceit, and she couldn't escape it. The walls were closing in around her, and she had no idea how to break free. "Mark, please," Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible. "Can we talk about this later? I'm not ready to discuss it now." But Mark wasn't willing to let it go that easily. "No, Jenna. We need to talk now. This can't wait anymore. I need to know what's going on." As Jenna sat there in the cafe, the reality of her situation hit her harder than ever. Her affair with Aiden had been a fleeting moment of passion, but now it had become the catalyst for the unraveling of her entire life. There was no turning back. The conversation she had been avoiding for so long had finally arrived, and she could no longer hide from the truth. She just didn't know how to face it. Jenna sat in the cafe, her phone pressed tightly against her ear, listening to Mark's increasingly sharp words as the truth seemed to come closer and closer. The cafe that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like an interrogation room. Her pulse was pounding in her temples, and her hands trembled as she gripped the coffee cup in front of her, the warmth doing little to calm her. She could feel the weight of her own betrayal crushing her chest, suffocating her every breath. There was no more running, no more lies to cover her tracks. This was the moment of reckoning. Jenna, I'm asking you one last time, what's going on? Are you seeing someone else? Mark's voice, once filled with affection, now sounded colder, sharper. The man she had shared her life with, the man who had once been her everything, was now a stranger to her. She could hear the pain in his voice, and it only deepened the guilt she felt. The guilt she couldn't escape. Her lips parted as if to speak, but the words seemed stuck in her throat. She opened her mouth again, but only silence came out. What could she possibly say? How could she explain what she had done? How could she justify a decision so destructive, so cruel? Jenna, Mark's voice grew more frantic now, desperate, I can't keep doing this. You're lying to me. I know you are. Tell me the truth. Please. The silence between them seemed to stretch on forever, and Jenna could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. Finally, she exhaled, a shaky breath that felt like the weight of the entire world being released from her lungs. There was no way to undo what had happened. There was no way to take back the mistakes she had made. The only thing left to do was face them. I don't know how to say this, Jenna began, her voice barely above a whisper. Her words felt foreign on her tongue, like she was speaking from a place outside of herself. I did something terrible. I cheated on you, Mark. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Jenna wondered if Mark had hung up. But then she heard his ragged breath on the other end, the sound of him trying to control his emotions. It was too much. She had shattered everything in one moment. You did what? Mark's voice cracked, and it sent a cold chill through Jenna. She hadn't expected it to hurt him this much. She hadn't expected to hear the raw pain in his voice. I'm so sorry, Mark. I never wanted to hurt you. But I got caught up in something. Jenna's voice trembled as she spoke, the weight of the truth finally tumbling out. I met someone. Aiden. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. The name hung in the air like a poison, and she could almost hear Mark's mind processing what she had said. His silence was more deafening than any words he could have spoken. You cheated on me, Mark repeated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. With someone you barely even know? Jenna swallowed hard. She wanted to apologize, to say anything that might make it better, but she knew deep down that no apology would fix this. No explanation would undo the damage. She had crossed a line, and she knew it. Yes, she whispered. I did. And I'm so sorry. She heard Mark take a shaky breath on the other end, and her heart ached at the thought of what he was feeling. The anger, the confusion, the hurt, all of it was coming through in waves. She had no idea how he would react next. Would he forgive her? Would he want to work through this? Or would this be the end of their marriage? I don't know what to say to you, Jenna, Mark replied after a long silence. His voice sounded distant now, as if he were miles away, even though he was just on the other end of the line. I thought we had something real. I thought you loved me. But now, I don't know what's left. Jenna closed her eyes, tears threatening to spill over. She had never wanted to hurt Mark, never wanted to betray the trust they had built over the years. But she had done it. She had torn everything apart for a brief moment of selfish pleasure. And now she had to live with the consequences. Mark, I do love you, she said, her voice breaking. I love you, but I was lost. I felt like you weren't there for me anymore. And I was weak. I made a horrible mistake. Mark was silent for a moment, and then he sighed, the sound thick with emotion. I don't know, Jenna. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. I don't even know if I want to. Her heart dropped. His words hit her harder than anything else. She had known this moment would come, but hearing the finality in his voice was like a punch to the gut. The realization that everything she had known, everything she had built with him, was now on the line, felt unbearable. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Mark," Jenna whispered. "I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know the truth. I had to tell you. I couldn't keep lying anymore." There was another long pause, and then Mark's voice returned, colder now, more distant. "I need time, Jenna. I need space to think about this. I can't make any decisions right now. But you need to understand, things can't go back to the way they were. They'll never be the same." Jenna nodded even though Mark couldn't see her. She didn't expect him to say anything else, and the silence that followed felt suffocating. She had destroyed their relationship, their marriage, with one reckless decision, and now she had to face the consequences. "Okay," she said softly, trying to keep her composure. "Take all the time you need, Mark. I'll be here when you're ready. But I understand if you need to walk away." The words were hard to get out. Every part of her wanted to beg, to make promises she knew she couldn't keep, but she knew it was too late for that. She had already crossed the point of no return. "I'll call you later," Mark said finally, his voice distant. "Goodbye, Jenna." The line went silent, and Jenna sat there, staring at her phone, as if willing it to ring again. But it didn't. The reality of the situation hit her with full force. Mark had heard the truth, and now there was no turning back. She had lost him. The tears came then as silent, uncontrollable tears as Jenna sat alone in the cafe, the weight of her actions crashing down around her. She had destroyed her marriage. And for what? A momentary escape? A fleeting thrill? It hadn't been worth it. And now, all that was left was the hollow ache of regret. The price of betrayal was steep, and Jenna had paid it.